Hello everyone! If you've been here before, then welcome back, and if you're new, then nice to meet you. I'm Hannah. I make videos about bullet journaling and vintage-inspired fashion, and I'd love it if you subscribed. I am coming to the end of my first bullet journal, which means that it's time for me to set up for a new one, and I thought it might make an interesting video to share with you. Before I started setting up my new bullet journal, I made a list of the spreads in my old journal that I found useful, the ones I never used, and the ones I wanted to add, and then I started to map out where my spreads were going to go. For my cover page, I considered writing 2019, but I thought that since there will be only 4 months left of 2019, it was a bit pointless. We know what year we're in because we're almost done with it. So instead I thought about quotes about adventure, maybe new beginnings, that type of thing, and I settled on the quote from the Disney film Up, "Adventure is out there." Throughout my setup for my new bullet journal, I was drawing little wildflowers over some of the pages, and I wanted to incorporate that in my cover page, but I also fancied having a slightly moody background, like there's a storm brewing in the air over my wildflower meadow. So the background is the shade Payne's Grey by Cotman, and I layered different patches of it on top of each other for this cloudy effect. For the wildflowers, I used my Winsor & Newton palette. I did a gold border using my Finetech Coliro metallic watercolours, and I outlined the details using my Unipin fineliners. For some extra details, I used a Posca paint pen to add pollen in the air, as well as a decoration to the border and lines to some petals. If you want to pick up any of these supplies that I just mentioned, they will all be linked in the description below. Watercolour paper is very thick and heavy, and I didn't want to bulk up my journal too much, so I scanned my painting into my laptop, then I edited it a bit to fix some colours, then printed it, cut it out and used double-sided tape to stick it into my journal. Before I added it to my journal, I used my Posca paint pen to write the quote, and then my cover page was done. I took a page out of the back of the notebook and cut it in half, then used it to write down my key or my legend twice. When I'd finished writing the symbols, their translations, and writing the title, I mounted them on some pretty craft paper just using a glue stick. Then I cut that out, created a fold about 1 centimetre from the edge, making sure it was really sharp using a ruler, and then I used glue dots to stick them to the inside of each cover, front and back. So this means that as I use my bullet journal, I can easily pull out my key whenever I need it, instead of trying to flip back to the beginning every time I need to check something. I've seen Amanda Rach Lee using a grid spacer in her journal, and I thought it was just genius. So if you haven't seen it before, it's basically an indication of how many dots along you have to go to find the centre of the page, or other useful dimensions. So my first step was to write out all the numbers, then work out where the centre lines were, then the quarter lines, the third lines, and finally I did 1/8 of the way down the page as well. So this spread will hopefully save me so much time, since a lot of the planning of bullet journal spreads is counting little dots to make sure that everything is evenly spaced. Next, I did a future log for the final 4 months of the year. A future log is a place to write dates that are confirmed for the future if you haven't already set up for that month yet. So in here I can write my term dates, birthdays, dates of assessments that are far into the future. It's just a good place to log significant dates when I don't yet have that month ready to go. At the bottom of each of those pages, I continued my wildflower theme by doing some simple doodles of various flowers. Over the page, I made space for my blog post and YouTube video ideas. I wrote headers for vintage, bujo, and miscellaneous things that don't fit in either of those. I recently decided to focus more on vintage-inspired fashion and bullet journaling videos and blog posts because those are the most popular ones on my channel and my blog, and they're also the ones that I enjoy creating the most. I will be talking about studying abroad and Wicca when the inspiration strikes, but for the most part I want you to know the sort of content you'll get on this channel and on my blog, rather than having it be such an eclectic mix.
When sweet Molly Ryan declared that aeroplane riding she dared, her sweetheart began to think of a plan where they could be wed overhead, so he said, I will get an airship.
I maintained my colour scheme by highlighting the headers, and I also drew a few wildflowers at the bottom of the pages as well.
She said to her boy, you're the captain and I am the crew. Take me up, up, up with you, dearie, away up to the sky. Sail around the...
I mentioned previously that I'm studying abroad, and last year I realised that I wasn't taking advantage of that as much as I should have been. I've decided to make a list of things that I want to visit in Barcelona, since it's only a short train ride away, and pop over to that beautiful city on the weekend to check out the things that I want to see. I also decided to do a spread for things to visit in Yorkshire as well, so that I have activities to suggest to my family when I'm back during holidays from university.
Sail around the lunar planet, making love and hugging every time it's can, with nobody in the aeroplane except apart from you and I
thought about drawing a paper airplane for this spread since it's about travelling and visiting things, but I thought that a bee would be more relevant to my theme since I've got flowers everywhere. So the little bee that I drew is me travelling around and seeing lots of lovely things.
Now Molly goes up every day, while Barney, her sweet
I get a lot of recommendations for things like podcasts and TV shows, so I created this spread so that I could put all of the recommendations all in the same place. In my previous journal, I had 2 different spreads for books to read and films to watch, but I had given myself far too much space, so this smaller spread will hopefully be more useful. It also has space for all of the podcasts and shows I'm recommended as well, since I didn't have a space to write those down before.
Way up to the sky, sail around the moon for a quiet spoon, just to pass the new and I. Let us float, float, float through the clouds and just have a lot of fun. We'll go up, up, up as two and then come down as one. Take me up along with you, me darling, do, and let us go away into a latitude about as near as anybody that has ever reached the sky. We can sail around the lunar planet making love and hugging every time.
In my second year at university, my independence will continue to grow since I'm renting an apartment for the first time ever. Part of adulting is keeping yourself from going bankrupt, so I created this spread to keep track of my finances. The graph at the top is where I'll keep track of purchases such as food, items for school, and treat yourself purchases so that I can see where my money is going. And below that, I made spaces to see how much my rent is each month, what my deposit is, and things like that. For some reason, no one teaches you how to budget in school, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But if this works out for me, I'd like to make a detailed blog post on the topic to help other young people in the same position as me. The final spread that I put together was a semester in Polaroids. It worked out so well that my previous journal filled up just in time to start my new one at the beginning of my first semester of my second year at uni, and I wanted to document that semester using my Polaroid camera. This spread features spaces for a Polaroid picture for September, October, November and December, so I can remember all the good times I've had this semester. I'm really looking forward to filling this spread up and looking back on things that happened this semester. So we're now on to the final flip through of my new bullet journal setup. So I wanted to say thank you so much for watching and be sure to subscribe to my channel to see more content like this. I hope you found this video a good source of inspiration for your own journal. Have a lovely day and goodbye.